Good evening and good afternoon to everybody. First off, I just want to say my name is Joe Rivera. I am actually one of the co-chairs for the New York City Tufts Lawyers Association Steering Committee, along with Tricia Episode, who I believe I saw somewhere in one of these many boxes all over my screen, but I believe she's here tonight with us. And I also want to say thank you to everybody for registering and attending for this event. I assure you, just from my own personal conversations with the moderator and the two panelists, this should be a very informative event, as well as hopefully beneficial for all of you who've attended, regardless of your background and regardless of sort of where your goals may be currently. So I once again just want to thank you for registering for the event. With that being said, I do want to give a special thanks though to Steve Feldman, one of the very involved Tufts Lawyers Association, Tufts alumni, who will be moderating tonight's event. I also want to thank Susan Ganz, who is also a Tufts alum and is one of the speakers for tonight's event, and then Kelli Proia, another one of the many speakers who will be sharing their wealth of information. Their contact information will actually be posted later on tonight in case you have any follow-up questions on any of the topics or any of the comments or any of the advice. So by all means, I believe I speak for everybody when I say feel free to reach out. We definitely encourage that. That's part of what the Tufts Lawyers Association is all about. It's about a community. It's about making sure you sort of have the resources and facilitating just that communication, that help for whatever you might need. So I strongly encourage you to follow up with us, whether it be about tonight's topic or something unrelated. By all means, I know me personally, I'm always more than happy to chat. Likewise, I'd be very remiss if I didn't thank the person you just heard from before, Amy McDonald from the Tufts Alumni Office. Truth be told, while Steve will be moderating, Susan will be speaking, and Kelli will be speaking as well, Amy's the one who put this all together. We could not do this without her, so if I could have you guys all give a round of applause, I would, but you can't even hear each other. Bottom line is, Amy, thank you so much. She really deserves a lot of credit for what she does for the Tufts Lawyers Association, as well as all the other shared alumni interest groups. So thank you for that as well, Amy. Likewise, you should be seeing in the chat at some point, I believe, Amy will post some information about joining the Tufts Lawyers Association. There's an opt-in directory, which we strongly encourage you to join, as it will help you build your network, which I'm sure will come up at some point throughout tonight's event, the importance of a network. Likewise, we have some upcoming events, which if you haven't attended them yet, I strongly encourage you do. Aside from one, sort of finding a way to meet other people, two, learning about some interesting topics, three, quite frankly, they're very informative and very fun, at least from the ones I've been able to attend. Frankly, I wish I had more time to attend more of these events. So I believe Amy's posting some in the chat already. And if you have any questions about those, again, feel free to follow up. Then as far as tonight's setup goes, Amy already sort of spoke to you about that, but basically we're gonna have more or less a roundtable discussion. For those who have not, or forget what the sort of topic is about here, I'll read it to you briefly from our description. Basically, this is what tonight's event is going to be about. As we said, too often young associates do not know where or how to begin developing business and securing a path from associate to partnership. So tonight we want to have a roundtable discussion with both experienced attorneys as well as sort of younger attorneys and executive coaches about how you can act today to immediately start developing business for your firm or your practice tomorrow. These speakers will be sharing their tips, their advice, their life experiences, and some action items, hopefully, that you can take away today to start building that business, start getting those clients for tomorrow. So with that being said, oh, sorry, I should say this also. If you're interested in joining the New York City Tufts Lawyers Association Steering Committee, we meet every Monday, the second Monday of every month, and you can feel free to reach out to myself, Steve, Amy, or anybody here today about how to join. We have an email group, we have Zoom calls and telephone calls, and we're hoping, now that the vaccine is being readily available for everyone, we eventually will have in-person events, including networking. We had a wine tasting not too long ago. So if you're interested in joining, please, once again, do not hesitate to reach out. Now, without further ado, I want to turn the floor over to Steve Feldman, who will be moderating tonight's event.
Hey, thank you very much, Joe. Welcome, everybody. I'm Steve Feldman. I'm class of 92 from Tufts, graduated from Georgetown Law in 1997. So I've been practicing for about 24 years. And I was one of the folks who were, the driving impetus to get this program, because this is something that is near and dear to my heart. I tell the story frequently that when I finished my service as a federal prosecutor after about 10 years or so into my practice, I went to my first law firm after public service, and was supposed to, at that point, I'm a junior partner, supposed to develop a book of business, suddenly be making rain. And the senior partner at the firm says, Steve, go ask everybody at the firm for 3 names. They're going to introduce you to each person, to 3 people. And that's how you're going to build business. And that was the only advice I got. And I then had to, flail and try to figure it out on my own for the next, up until this very moment today, on how I was supposed to build a business and build a law practice, something that they don't teach us in law school. So it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, having been through that experience. And so to the degree that I can help people and encourage you to learn more and avoid the mistakes and the difficulties I went through, I wanted to do that. So we have today 2 fantastic business coaches, business management advisors, who are going to give the benefit of their experience to all of you. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a moment. We're going to go for about an hour today. I have some set questions that we've prepared in advance that I'm going to moderate with Susan and Kelly. And then we're also going to encourage you, if you have your own questions, to put them in the chat. And while we may not get to every question, love to have that problem of having too many questions and having to pick and choose. So with that, welcome Susan Ganz, who is a Tufts alum. And Susan, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Steve, for that kind introduction, and for you and Joe and Amy for having me here tonight. Not only am I a Tufts alum, I'm a proud Tufts parent of a rising junior. So my background, I like to say, is a cross between human behavior and business. At Tufts, I studied clinical psychology that I applied to business. And at business school, I studied finance and strategic management. So I have a broader corporate experience background in commercial lending, in consulting at a Big Four, and technology management on Wall Street, and then a couple of firms doing financial planning and advisory work. And now I have my own firm. So I come at this from a broad range of experiences. I really enjoy this topic because, like Steve, I like sharing how to shortcut and the mistakes, and hopefully you could learn from our stories and welcome the conversation and connection afterwards.
Thank you, Susan. Now I'd like to introduce Kelli Proia. Kelli is among other things, an adjunct professor at Suffolk Law School, where she teaches real business of law skills to the students at the law school there. And she also runs her own business called Lawducate, where she is a coach to lawyers, among other things. So Kelli, why don't you introduce yourself too, please?
Hi, again, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Joe, for considering a non-Tufts alum. So I am a year behind Steve. I was PC, Providence College, class of 93, and University of Maine School of Law, class of 1998. So I graduated in the last century, and I practiced intellectual property law for 16 years, mostly in-house. I went to a large research laboratory in Cambridge, Massachusetts. From there, I went to head up a global division, their intellectual property portfolio of about 10,000 assets until probably 2008. Then I went and took some time off when I had my daughter and started a solo practice to keep my foot in the one at home, one in the law. And from there, I built a small solo practice in Rhode Island where I live. And now I made many mistakes. Steve, you mentioned yours and not knowing how to get business, and I was right there with you. When I started my solo practice, I had no idea. I knew how to practice law. I didn't know how to get a client. So figured all of that out. And then I started Lawducate as a way to help other lawyers who don't learn these skills in law school, but desperately need them to be successful in their careers. So thank you.
So let's dive in right now, guys. So Kelly, when I turn to you, first of all, what are we talking about here today? What is business development? Can you define it for us briefly?
So as I tell my students, business development is two things. It's marketing and it's sales. So we've smushed them together and we call it business development. So it's everything we do as lawyers to bring clients into into the firm. So the marketing aspect is we're looking for prospects. We're looking for people who are interested in our services. And from there, once we identify those prospects, we're looking to convert them into actual paying clients. And that's the sales part of business development. But it's basically all the things we do to try to attract clients to our law firms.
So Susan, why should we care? Why should business development matter to us as lawyers? Why can't we just, as Kelly said, be great lawyers and spend our time doing that and not have to worry about this business stuff and leave that to you MBA people instead?
So I tend to look at business development as really relationship development and relationship management, which is a lifelong skill. So whether you're trying to get ahead in your firm, or if you have your own practice, trying to grow your own practice, or you're working in-house, it's all about developing relationships internal to your firm and external. And it's also about being in tune, if you will, with the people that you're in relationship with from a professional standpoint. So it's being attuned to what it is that they're interested in, and what it is that you're interested in. And that's what I call emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really about understanding and regulating your emotions and your behaviors, as well as being in tune with what are other people's emotions and behaviors. And why people should also care about it is because 90% of top performers are high in emotional intelligence, and almost 60% of job performance is due to emotional intelligence. And those with higher emotional intelligence tend to make more money.
So what's that mean practically? Does that mean you connect with people better? You can serve them better. You can listen to them better. They'll give you your business. They'll ask you to help in their project. Well, can you put that in practical terms for us a little bit, Susan?
Sure. So when you assess the sort of climate, if you will, of others, and really get to listen, listen for what are their needs, what are they looking for, you can be a better lawyer in serving what the client is looking for. And if the client is looking for something that might be, let's say, unrealistic, you can also frame it for them, but being in tune, being in sync with, or what are their goals, because it's not about you, it's really about that client and that relationship and your service to that client.
So I guess, and I'll comment here too, and going back to the question of why should we care about business development? From my perspective, it's also about being able to control your own future a little bit, having some say about what it is you're going to do with your career. It's been my view that if I can develop business and I can have clients who want to work with me, then I have the ability to call the shots a little bit in my career. I can move to another firm if I want to. I can go out on my own and be successful if I want to. I can have some control over my own future. Whereas if I'm just working for other people and just servicing them, I have less control of my future. And so that was one of the other reasons it's been important to me in thinking about it.
Yes, I think of it as being CEO of your career.
So Kelly, it seems so overwhelming though. I mean, it was overwhelming to me as I talked about when I left the government. and I was told to get started by asking each of my partners for 3 names, which wasn't a particularly effective strategy. What should people be doing to get started? And is it something you can start doing before you're at the partner level, or should be doing before you're, at my age, as with a partner who suddenly got told to do this?
So I have very strong opinions on when lawyers should start their business development process, and that's as soon as possible. So think about the old proverb, which says, the right time to plant a shade tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time to plant that tree is today. So you have to start early in your business development in order to have, you have to sow the seeds early so that they grow and flower when you need them later in your career. Because you're not going to make partner if you don't have a book of business. So at what point along the sliding scale between your first year associate to the point where they're going to say, hey, you know what, we think you're partner material, are you supposed to start building a book of business? Because right now at most firms, the book of business goes into what the partnership decision-making process. So I say start early. And what does that look like? That basically looks like, this is basically what I've seen from every lawyer that I've ever worked with. Practically every client comes from your referral network. So unless you're a personal injury lawyer and you have an ad on television which says something to the effect of, have you been injured in a car accident? If so, call this 1-800 number. We'll evaluate your case. You don't have to pay a dime until we settle with the insurance company. Unless that's your practice, if you're a transactional lawyer, or if you're like you, Steve, a criminal lawyer, you have to get business in a different way. It's not going to be from advertising. It's not going to be from usually your firm's website. That helps the firm, but not the individual lawyers. So the individual lawyers, to grow their book, it comes from your network. And some of you may be saying, well, I'm young, I don't know a lot of people. Well, you actually probably do know more people than you think. So your network is made up of friends and family, everybody you went to college with that you know, everybody that you went to law school with that you know, the people that you worked at the pizza parlor in the summer, your summer jobs and all of that stuff. It's all the people that you've met over time, and they become your network. And you also might be saying, well, those people are my age. They're not decision makers. They may not be able to hire me. But as a great example, I had a client who, he was in a fraternity in college, and this was 25 years ago, fraternity in college, and he kept in touch with all his fraternity brothers, and they went on a ski weekend every year, or a ski week every year. For 25 years, they've been doing it. He's kept very good connections with those people. Same with law school. He goes and he has a beach vacation with them every year. For like 22 years, he's been doing that. And what ends up happening is, as he's grown in his career, his friends have grown in their careers, and they do become decision makers, and they are able to send him business. He's a business attorney, and he's done everything from their partnership agreements to to simple contracts to business disputes. But you've got to cultivate that network and grow that network as soon as possible.
So we're focused here, or we, so far we've been talking a lot about partners and buzzwords about law firms. But does this also apply, Susan, to folks in government, or if you worked at a nonprofit, or if you worked in-house at a company, or are these kind of things important for those people too? And if so, why?
Yes. So what I look at it, if you're in-house or in a government or nonprofit kind of role, I see it as developing what I call relationships internal to your firm. So that means cultivating your expertise and getting known with your peers, with people who are in leadership positions, and people who are not only inside your department, but outside of your department. And this, by the way, also goes for people who are at law firms, because what's important is to showcase your expertise and also get to know other people who can advocate for you, who can be your mentors, who can be your sponsors in your career. So it looks a little bit different when it's internal to a firm, but it's still important to cultivate those relationships and to brand yourself about what it is that you're good at. But in doing that, it's important about taking a step back to really understand what's important to you. What are your goals in your career? And then tailoring your strategies and your actions to what it is that you want to achieve with your goals.
So Susan, following up on that, what are some practical steps? What are practical ways people can develop those internal relationships inside their firms or organizations? What would you suggest?
So practically speaking, it's about understanding, I do what I call a stakeholder analysis to understand who are all the different people that you can touch and potentially serve in your firm or want to have relationships with, and then determine what's important to them. How can you contribute, add value to them? You know, what are they getting measured on? And then to proactively reach out to go to coffee with them personally or in person or virtually, to raise your hand for different firm activities. So things like recruiting or being a part of an employee resource group if it's a larger organization. Raise your hand to do special projects. Those are all practical ways that people can connect. And it doesn't have to take a long time. It could be 15 minutes per day that somebody decides, okay, I'm going to schedule these coffees. I'm going to reach out via LinkedIn to so-and-so in a different department. But again, it's really understanding and being intentional about it. And even in internal meetings to determine what is it that you want to achieve in that meeting. How does your personal brand come across? What impression do you want to make? Who do you want to meet?
I think that's helpful. I'll give another as I'm telling all the mistakes I've made in my career. So when I was in the prosecutor's office, I just had some young kids at the time, and I had this idea that I was going to work really hard all day long, including like eating lunch at my desk and not going to meet everybody else for lunch. And then I'd go home so I could go home and see my kids at night, which I thought was the right thing to do as a dad. But I certainly missed the opportunity to build better relationships with all the people in my unit and whatever unit I was in at the office at the time who got together for lunch every day. And so looking back, I see that as a mistake I probably made but at the same time, I got to know my kids. So how bad a mistake could it be? But it's that kind of balance. Kelli, so that was practical internal. Are there practical ways you'd suggest that people work to develop relationships external to their firms or organizations, to the outside clients they want to bring in?
So I think I agree wholeheartedly with Susan about the relationship building. And as I've just said that business development, it's your network is going to be what supports you. So it's simply a way of, you need to find ways to stay connected with your network. So things like coffees, lunches, emails asking about how they're doing. I haven't seen you in a while. Let's get together. And obviously it was easier pre-pandemic to do things like that. But it's trying to maintain relationships and be interested in the other party. So when you to have your network sustain you over the years, it comes down to three things. People have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you, and that has to come over time. So it can take one touch where they decide to hire you. It could take 64 touches or interactions before they decide to hire you. So it's a matter of consistency. It's consistently reaching out to your network, being a friend to people you're already friends with, being nice to family members, keeping in contact with people you used to work with. It's again, it was internally being nice to the people you do work with. That's how I got my second job. When my first job I lost in the 2001, after 9/11, I got my second job because I was nice to people at a summer internship that I had, and they were hiring at the time. So not only does a network bring you business, it can get you jobs. It can get you other opportunities that you don't even anticipate that you're going to need. But this actually can go back to like what you learned in kindergarten. It's like, be a friend. It's not rocket science. But again, when the more lawyers I talk to and the more I deep dive into where their business comes from the people they know. And it's just a consistent way of keeping in touch with those people.
So what are, again, if we were to give people a recipe of, maybe this question was really for both of you guys, of practical things they could do. Do they join a nonprofit board? Do they get involved with the Tufts Lawyers Association? Do they get involved with their church or their synagogue or their mosque? Do they play in a band? Do they decide they're going to do comedy and take a comedy class? What are all the random things? I mean, what and how, and do those things really turn into business? I mean, what is it just get out in the world? Is that what you're suggesting is the answer?
So here's the paradox about being a lawyer. We work all the time, right? We're in the office all the time. And the key to business development and networking is actually to get out of the office sometimes. So I say yes to everything that you say and then some. So I think it's always funny that the ABA in the 1960s put out a letter saying lawyers should not work any more than 1,300 hours a year. And why 1,300? Because they needed to spend more time out of the office. Being part of their government, being part of their community, being part of their faith-based community, being part of alumni networks, they actually were supposed to get out of the office and be a whole person. And that's it's harder today to do that because we're conditioned as lawyers to be in the office. So what I'm asking, and I think to your point, all of those things are good things to do. Get out of the office and meet people. The more people you meet, the bigger your network becomes. I mean, look at how a LinkedIn, when you first start on LinkedIn, you have a few connections. And then I've been on since 2006. So over the 15 years or so that I've been on, I've grown it to almost 1,000. And that's through networking, just going out and meeting people. And I think that's really the key. I do have a practical tool, but I think we can do that at another point in the thing, Steve.
Okay. I wanted to add to what Kelly is saying. I say yes, and the and piece is to really consider who is your ideal client, and then to determine where does your ideal client, quote unquote, then hang out. Is your ideal client, I don't know, bankers? So where do bankers hang out? Well, they tend to be on nonprofit boards, and they tend to be involved in social activities like golf and tennis and so forth. So I would first marry what it is you're passionate about with also where is your ideal client hanging out, so to speak.
For example, when I was in private practice, I was looking for small startup technology companies to be my clients. So where did I hang out? I hung out in the innovation district around Boston. I hung out at the CIC in Cambridge. I hung out in places where young entrepreneurs congregated and had discussions and events and things like that. So yes, you find the people, you find your tribe, basically. You find the people who are interested in the same things as you. But if you're like a real estate attorney or a trust and estates attorney who are looking for general, larger sections of the population, more general networking can help. I have a friend who is a trust and estates attorney for young families. She does really well at preschool events and school events, who will bring her in to talk to the families about planning for, unfortunate events that can happen. Like, so you need guardianship, you might need healthcare proxies, things of that nature. So you got to find that, what type of lawyer you are and find your space. But certain types of lawyer, the more general you can be, the better. I mean, it's amazing the stories you hear how people get clients.
Certainly for me as a white collar criminal defense attorney, that's a challenge, right? Unless I'm going to hang out at the social club with the mob or something, there's not a lot of places I can go where I'm sure to find criminals who want to hang out with me. So it's trying to somehow let the world, the more general world, know that I'm here to help people when they have, crisis and interactions with the government. So what do you think are the misconceptions you see that attorneys have that, get in the way of them trying to build business or start developing business, or that that we should think about? Susan, do you have a thought on misconceptions?
Sure. Well, one of them is related to a story you shared at the beginning. So like you, after business school, I thought I knew everything. I really didn't know much of anything about business development and career advancement. And I thought if I did my head down and did the work, that, plum assignments would come to me and everything would be just fine. But I saw some of my peers proactively go into partners' offices and principals' offices and to develop relationships with them, to talk about their hobbies, talk about sports, whatever it was. And they would also at that time share what they were working on. And then when these plum, I'll call them consulting assignments, came along, it tended to go to these same individuals. So I got the memo and learned that lesson about how important it is to, beyond your technical knowledge, to really pick up your head and to get known for your expertise by talking to people, not just relying on your work to magically show for itself. And that's proactively doing it within your firm and outside of your firm. And to add on to what Kelli was talking about, it's also about, maybe you're more of a writer and you love to write. So it's writing articles or sharing other people's articles with people as a touch point for connection. Or maybe it's, if your firm allows you to do videos where you can give snippets of a topic and get known that way. Maybe it's doing speaking engagements like a panel like this. So it's really about firing on a number of different aspects of marketing to get out there and brand yourself.
So those are great answers, but in some of those, Susan, you presume that the firm was supportive of you making a video or supportive of you writing. What if you have a boss, Kelli, who's like, go bill a lot of hours, Steve, and I don't want to hear about you and your marketing and your Tufts Lawyers Association club and those kind of things, because that means you're not in the office billing. Well, what should I be doing? How should I be approaching that? Because it doesn't feel like that partner, that boss, is looking out for my long-term well-being.
They're not looking out for your long-term well-being. And I think depending on the size of the firm, I mean, it can be difficult when you have a boss of that nature. I'm going to say market and do business development anyway, because it's your career, regardless of the size of the firm you're in. It's your career. Susan said that at the beginning. So, and I tell this to, if I see somebody in the chat say they work for Dentons, one of the largest law firms in the world. Every partner there is basically a business unto themselves. You are responsible for creating the product, marketing the product, selling the product. At the end of the year, you are responsible for how much money you made the firm. So you are responsible for a profit and loss statement. So you're basically a company of one working in a firm that is made up of small little companies of one. And you have to take care of your own little company. And yes, it can be uncomfortable if your boss doesn't get it. But if you follow his advice, you're going to find yourself at a certain point in your career where you don't have a network to rely on. You're not going to have the business you need to make it to the next level. And then you might be stuck at the firm because you don't have a book of business that will get you to your next job. You won't have a book of business to reach the partner level. You won't have the skills you need, and you're going to be behind the 8 ball at a point in your career where you should be making other decisions. And so I say ignore the boss.
What if you're at a national firm that, they only need the biggest work, right? They need, unless you're going to bring in a $5 million litigation or a $20 million merger or something, don't bother. And so, as a younger attorney, how do you get, those are hard cases to just bring in the door. So is it worthless for you to market at that point, or what is there an approach that you guys would recommend?
I would say that's the time to build your network. As I said, keep in touch with the people you went to college with, keep in touch with the people you went to law school with. They may not give you the cases you need now, but eventually someone at the firm, if you want to stay at that firm long-term, is going to ask you to start bringing in those $5 million litigations. And the only way you're going to do it is if you get to know your network, but also I think getting to know your clients. It's very important that you service your clients well, that they know, like, and trust you, so that at a certain point later in your career, they stick with you.
Susan, did you have a thought on that one?
Yes, I do. And that to me it's a great learning opportunity earlier in your career to ask, how did you get these opportunities? And for people to share just, some of their behind the scenes secrets of how they developed the business or how the particular opportunity came in. And if the partner won't share or doesn't have time, take it upon yourself to go to the practice manager and just say, I want to grow in my career. I'm committed to the firm. What are some things I can do within the parameters of the firm, and get the lay of the land from there.
So we've talked a lot about so far, or the emphasis has been about joining and being out there and building relationships kind of one-on-one personally. And I can tell you from personal experience that if my job is to work, 9 to 7 every day, and then go to a bar committee from 7 to 9 at night, plus take a client out to dinner or for drinks when I'm not at the bar committee, or, figure out what else it is, and I'm doing that 4 nights a week. Sometimes that is my life, and it's exhausting. Are there, though, technological tools that help? Kelli, you mentioned LinkedIn. Are there other things we should be doing where we don't have, if we're going to do this one at a time, that sounds very slow. Is there an email campaign? Is there LinkedIn? Is there other things we can or ought to be doing? Are there networking groups, all those things where you can meet a lot of people at once that are also useful tools from your experiences?
So I've seen some firms and some attorneys have great success with blogging. If they are, they've become experts or perceived experts in a particular field because they talk about it all the time on their blog. Then they put that blog out via social media. I, for instance, I'm very heavily involved on Twitter, where I have a whole network of people who know who I am because hashtag legal tech, hashtag legal ed, hashtag, it's all of these things where it's like you're putting your content out into the world, then you become a thought leader and people can find you from there, because we're at 60% now. 60% of lawyers are found actually via a Google search. And the best things you can do to juice up that Google juice is blogging, podcasting, being active on social media so that the bots find you and raise your profile to the front page, that first page of Google. So if you wanted to go one to many, I think I would say Instagram stories. I would say LinkedIn. Now you can put video on LinkedIn. So do a short video for LinkedIn. YouTube is the second largest search engine. So I see lawyers doing YouTube series. I'm helping a lawyer right now develop, he's a divorce attorney. He's going to develop a podcast based on just the things he commonly sees in his practice. So there are a lot of ways where if you, maybe you don't want to go, you don't feel comfortable going, standing at an event with your drink in hand, like making small talk, but maybe you do have something to contribute on a bigger scale, and blogging and podcasting or some other form of media would be better for you.
And
Susan,
I'll
do you want to add?
Yeah, some firms or even individuals have tools to put out their articles or to share events of interest or to even share other articles and things that are of interest so they could stay top of mind. So for example, when I was in the financial advisory world, I had access to something called e-relationship. And that allowed me to wish people happy birthday, happy Memorial Day, share articles, events, and so forth. So there are different touch points. Like Kelly said, sometimes it takes 7, 9, more than that touch points until somebody becomes a client. So it's thinking creatively about where you can be in a place that's one to many, and doing it within, what your strengths are. Some people's strengths are talking, some people's strengths are writing.
I also want to say, during the pandemic, when you couldn't go out and have drinks and coffees and lunches and things of that nature, I did see a lot of lawyers turn to the internet to find their voice, find their people, and try to get in front of people, because we just didn't have any alternatives.
Right. Joe, how are we doing on questions? Anything that people have sent in that you would suggest we share with the group? Or Joe, do you have, look, you're a little bit different spot in your career than I am as the old guy who's starting to gray. Do you have some thoughts that you'd want to add in that we haven't covered? I'd love your input.
Sure. So there's one question that actually is a follow-up to Kelly's question from, I believe, Jennifer Gilman, which is in regards to one of the statistics that you threw out, Kelly. It says, is that 60% for business-facing lawyers at large firms, or more for individual-facing lawyers like trust and estates, family law, personal injury?
It's more for the smaller firms. I mean, the people at Kirkland Ellis or Cravath or Skadden Arps, they're not going to come up in the Google searches. But it's more for the smaller, I guess, more retail type law firms. But there's a lot of business out there. We all forget that 49% of lawyers in this country, out of the 1.3 million lawyers in this country, 49% are solos. Only 28% work in what we would consider big law. So there's a lot of lawyers and then there's whatever in the middle that are anywhere from, Steve, your firm of about 50, 60 lawyers, all the way, down to a firm of 20 lawyers, or maybe up to 200, 300 lawyers, but it runs the gamut.
So are there, let's talk again about the people like me from the olden days from government service or from nonprofit or in-house. If someone wants to make a move and go from in-house or from nonprofit or from public service to a law firm or to start their own practice, what would you suggest they do, either before they leave to get ready, or once they hang up their shingle or start at their new firm?
Can I know this because this is one of the biggest mistakes I made. So as I said earlier, I went directly from law school in-house. All of my summer jobs while I was in law school were corporate jobs. I did intellectual property due diligence for mergers and acquisitions for a company that was buying a ton of companies. So I made the crucial mistake of ignoring my network. I let all of my relationships go. I focused on the job at hand because I thought I didn't need my network. I didn't need to get a client. I worked for my client. So I did not do any of the skills or keep up any of the skills necessary to have a network when I needed it. And I think even if you're in-house or even if you're a government worker or whatever, if you ever plan on going into private practice or doing anything, I mean, if you're going to retire with the government, fine, but that's not always possible. So it is important to just keep those relationships warm. Like, don't let them go cold. Because I mean, that's the mistake I made. I'd been practicing 11 years when I got out of, when I left the corporate law. So I knew how to do law. I didn't know how to get a client. And it took me a good 2 or 3 years to really figure it out and land those clients. It's a long runway. I think that's the one thing about business development. People think I go out to an event, I come back with a client. It doesn't work that way. It can take a really long time from the time you start to the time you actually start to see the fruit of your labor.
And I would say that, a network like the Tufts Lawyers Association is a great place where you can learn from each other about, how do you make those career moves, and also do some searches within the Tufts community as well as LinkedIn and other platforms to find, people who have made similar moves to what you want to do, and reach out to them and ask them for 15 minutes or so of their time to see if they can share with you how they navigated the path and what are steps that you should be taking prior to making your next career move. It's the power of community and sharing.
Steve, one of the things that you're starting to see pop up is organizations that will help you make the transition. So for instance, there's an organization out there that will help, say if you left the profession to go become a mom and you want to come back into law, there are organizations that will help you learn some new skills, learn some new technology, brush up on billing practices, different type of, things in the legal tech space, so that when you, and they actually have, let's say, internships that they offer, that you are able to get your skills back up so you can enter the workforce. And I'm starting to see, like, there are organizations like, hey, you want to go from government to private practice. Like you'll find like groups get together. It's like, let's like help all of us get to where we want to go. So I think you're starting to see that more of that, where like community is helping each other, do these, what used to be really difficult things.
And I would echo what both Susan and Kelly just said about the long runway. I mean, one of the issues I see is we'll have a 7th or 8th year lawyer come interview with my firm to try to lateral to us. And at that point, they're getting a little more senior in the practice. And we'll say to them, well, what do you do to develop business? And they've been at a great firm with a great name and they have a great education. And they say, well, I just joined the city bar. Well, I know that just joining the city bar isn't going to produce any results for that really wonderful person for 2, 3, 5 years. And so telling me that in an interview that they just joined the city bar. It's like it's essentially telling me they've done nothing to prepare for this move. And they can't really help me at all in that area, that I'm going to have to carry them for even longer. So thinking about this, what would you do in terms of going back to your, what would you tell your younger self if you can look back? And we've all said we've made mistakes in our careers, and certainly to the degree that we can help these folks not repeat the mistakes we made. Although, like, I tell my kid my mistakes I made, and he just wants to do them all over again and ignore exactly what Dad says. But for you, but maybe these folks are smarter because they went to Tufts and they want to hear the mistakes we made and not repeat them. What would you tell your younger self to if you could do that and do something different?
I'll just riff on what I had
Susan?
said earlier, which was about, pick up your head and get out there and be intentional about talking to people within your firm, scheduling time, whether it's virtual coffees or LinkedIn connections, for internal and then for external in the firm. Decide, who it is that you want as your ideal client or your next career move, and figure out the places where these individuals are hanging out, so to speak, and set time in your calendar to go do the activities in order to reach them. And like I said, if you don't know where to get started, just start with 15 minutes a day. Maybe it's 3 LinkedIn connections per day. If you do 3 per day, then it's 15 per week. Do 15 per week. By the end of the month, you'll have 60. So it doesn't take long to start your efforts to start multiplying. It's intentional about scheduling the time in your calendar to do it and making it a habit as part of your day.
All right, guys.
I'm sorry,
Kelly.
Joe, give us another minute. I'm sorry, just give
Yes,
us
yeah,
another
Kelly.
minute, Joe. Kelly, go ahead. And then Kelly, before we break, Joe, I want Kelly to talk us about, she has a practical tool I wanted her to show the team, the group.
So I would quickly, the answer to the last question was early and often. You just have to start networking early, and you have to do it often. It's consistency over time that is going to make you the lawyer you're going to be. It's every day, all of the time, doing just, even if it's one thing towards marketing, by the end of the year, that one thing adds up to results over time.
It's
and
like
I would
the
like
atomic
to,
habits,
and I think
right?
the tool will help because it's, let me share it. So I'm going to be sharing this with everybody. Everybody can have it, but this is what I give my coaching clients. This is what I give my lawyers. It's a monthly marketing worksheet. So basically I call it the 3-5-15-1 rule. So every month, do 3 in-person meetings, whether that's an alumni meeting like this, or if it's coffee with a friend or lunch with an old colleague, but 3 in-person meetings a month, 5 phone calls. Call the partner that you used to work for at a different firm and see how they're doing. Ask how their kids are, especially we're at a great time of year where people are getting married, people are graduating, people's kids are graduating, all of this stuff is happening. Like, check in and see how they are. 15 emails or social media contacts. So basically, right, if you're not comfortable making the phone call, if you're not that close, you can go on and like something that they posted on LinkedIn, comment on, I actually just got a slew of people that I know have work anniversaries this week. All of a sudden, I'm sending congratulations on 5 years at such and such a firm. I'm sending, so basically it's simple networking that doesn't take a lot of time, but I am back in their consciousness for a moment. The last thing, the one, is the one unexpected gift. So this is where I usually send books. I'll send books to people I have marketing books, I have sales books that I send, usually Seth Godin, but it's, I always tell, like, if you're a divorce attorney, send a bottle of champagne once the settlement agreement is signed and the judge puts the hammer down on
Uh-oh.
And I will grab this to a client of mine. Their family was exposed to COVID. They have 2 little boys. They're stuck in the house for 2 weeks, and he loves Baby Yoda. So this is going out in the mail tomorrow so that I can bring a little bit of sunshine to somebody's day. Send flowers if you know it's an anniversary and that you're close to them. That's just things that you can do to like just brighten somebody's day, and you'd be surprised at how amazing it makes somebody feel and the good feelings they have towards you. So this worksheet, there are instructions on the bottom, but this worksheet will be available to you. It will be going out via email, but it's just a way at the end of the month, you can look back and, once you record it all down, you can say, how much marketing did I do this month? Hey, look, it's all here on the worksheet. And the flip side is you can now know exactly who you contacted, what follow-up needs to happen, how it went. It's a metric that, it's a tool that gives you some metrics to your business development efforts.
And you can, Kelly, can you stop share your screen? So.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thanks. And so you can, you can use that same tool as create an Excel spreadsheet, so you can add it each month and have it virtually and follow it that way. It doesn't have to be printed out. And as and as Susan said, I mean, that's how you spend your 15 minutes a day, right? So if you're devoting 15 minutes, as Susan suggested, you can make sure that you're doing one of those things on Kelly's worksheet and filling it out. And it's a way to make sure that you're keeping yourself honest and providing some accountability for yourself. So I think, guys, it is 8 o'clock on the dot by my watch. So this is an hour. It went by so fast. I really appreciate our great speakers today, Susan Ganz and Kelli Proia. Both of you were really helpful to answering our questions. If people want to stay on and have an informal chat for 5 or 10 minutes, we're happy to stay on for a couple minutes, and you're welcome to talk to any of us, because we always love talking to all the jumbos. But if you're done, and we'll stop recording so we can do that. But otherwise, you are welcome to say goodbye and get off, unless you have any last questions or anything else. But I really want to thank Susan Ganz for her time today. Thank Kelli Proia for willing to speak with us. Thank Joe Rivera for co-chairing the New York Steering Committee and really doing the work to make this happen. And thank Amy McDonald at the Tufts Alumni Office for all the fantastic work she always does, and especially tonight for making this happen. So I hope you guys like this. And if you do, maybe we can do something like this again someday, maybe even in person. Could you imagine that? So thank you very much, and feel free to stay on if you want to talk, and we'll unmute people in chat. Otherwise, it was nice meeting you all.